What's happening, folks? So I just got back from seeing Madame Web alone in a theater on Valentine's Day. All jokes aside, I did go and see Madame Web, and it is the worst out of the 4 Sony-verse movies that they've released so far. This movie has a great premise, in my opinion, but it is completely squandered by every other aspect of the movie. The premise being that a woman who can see the future is on a mission to save 3 women that will one day become great superheroes that are currently being hunted by a supervillain that is self-aware that he's going to be defeated by them in the future is so cool. But everything else in this movie sucks, and it's mainly because this movie takes itself way too seriously and isn't on the good quality to be that serious. The reason why the other 3 Sony-verse movies work to some degree is because there's a level of campiness and ridiculousness to their movies. Venom and Eddie Brock's relationship is very silly and fun to watch, so even though the narrative isn't that strong, their relationship carries those movies, and that's why people end up enjoying them. The Morbius movie, Matt Smith's performance is very great. He chews the scenery in every scene that he's in, and that is what elevates that film. Granted, I still hate that movie, but his performance is one good factor in it. This movie, on the other hand, all it has is a good premise. Everything else in it is terrible. Like, when you look at the actors, you can't even blame them completely for their performances being bland because the writing doesn't give them anything to work with. The lines are extremely generic, or they're pandering nonsense to Spider-Man fans that are honestly either sad or disrespectful. It's basically the equivalent of dangling a biscuit in front of a dog that's running on a treadmill. It's like, oh, you see, we're bringing up Spider-Man, we're bringing up Spider-Man stuff, but like they're not giving you what you want either. And a perfect example of that is a joke that is made at the very beginning of the movie where, I shit you not, they make a joke about being shot in Manhattan to Uncle Ben. I wish I was joking. Madame Web is essentially talking to Uncle Ben. He's saying stuff like he hadn't lived in New York for a while and he's happy he moved back home. And then she makes a joke saying, oh, what, you've never been shot at in Manhattan before? And I was just sitting there in absolute disbelief, like, did they actually just make that joke? Like, how did you expect fans of Spider-Man to react when they heard that joke? Were you expecting us to be like, ha, I get it, it's a meta joke because Uncle Ben, he gets shot and dies. Like, that's a big part of Spider-Man's story that traumatizes Peter forever. Like, I got it, it's so funny, bro. Like, what were you expecting was going to happen with that joke? And I'm not someone who doesn't like meta jokes when it comes to superhero things. I love the Harley Quinn show, and that show's foundation is made off of making meta jokes about DC Comics. It works great there. But, like, this isn't funny. It's just like why? What made you think that was going to work? And then every other reference to Spider-Man, it's just kind of unnecessary. It does that thing that I hate that movies do where they're about to say the name of something, but then they don't, and they leave it up to you being like, oh, you're a fan, you know what we were about to say, that makes you hype, right? Like, they mention Peter and May Parker in the movie, but they don't say their names. It's like, oh, Ben's like, I started dating someone really special, but he doesn't say her name, and it's like, oh, he's dating Aunt May, oh boy, that makes me so happy. Or like, oh, hey, Dakota Johnson's character, Madame Web, meets Peter's mother, Mary, and she's at a baby shower, and they're playing a guessing game on what the name of the baby's going to be, and she has a vision of the future where she says the name, but she snaps out of the vision right before she says the name's Peter, and it's like, oh, wow, the baby's Peter Parker, oh my god, I can't believe, like, no, man, I'm just sitting there like, why are you doing this? Like, fans have complained that you haven't made a movie with a spider person in it. So you make a movie that teases spider people for the entire movie without actually having them do something in it. And then you tease the Spider-Man character that people love dear most to their hearts multiple times in the movie in these lackluster ways. Like, why? It's just so pointless to me. And then it doesn't help that all of the characters in the movie suck. They're all terrible people, except for Sydney Sweeney's character. Her character is the only nice person in the entire movie, but she's kind of like very shy and weak-willed and gets peer pressured into things. So like you feel bad for her more than you find her likable, which is kind of sad. But like her character is written to be like a sweet person. All the other characters are written like dicks. You either have the smart character that's always correcting people, or you have the jerk asshole punk rock kid who comes from a rich family, or you have Dakota Johnson character who like doesn't make sense for being an asshole because her whole thing is that she's a paramedic. Her job is making people feel comfortable and safe so she can save their lives. But the first moment she gets when she meets the three girls being hunted by the villain, the first thing she wants to do is give them to someone else to fix the problem. But like, no one else can help them with the problem. This isn't like a thing where it's like, oh, they got attacked by someone who they thought was normal, and she thinks the best case of scenario is to give them to the police to be put in protective custody. That's not the case. At this point, they're fully aware that the person hunting them is a dude with superpowers. And the first thing she says is, oh, the guy who just killed 6 cops? Yeah, let me give you over to your parents. They'll surely be able to protect you more than I can. How? How can they protect them from, like, what sense does that make? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. How would that even be possible? Like, it's just so stupid that that's her first train of thought. It's weirdly as if these characters are written to be the protagonists of a horror movie. Where, you know how horror movie protagonists, mainly slasher movie protagonists, are written to be assholes a bit so that, like, you want them to survive because being hunted by the monster or the serial killer in said horror film is bad. So you somewhat want them to escape, but at the same time, when they do get killed by the killer or monster, you don't feel as bad because the movie writ them to be partly unlikable. That's how these characters are written in this movie, but this isn't a horror film. All of these characters are superheroes that just haven't become superheroes yet. They're not people you want to see die. You're people you want to see become heroes. So why do they all feel like terrible people? It's so baffling to me. And then you have the bad guy who his whole thing, you don't even know what his whole thing is about. Because his whole shtick in the movie, he wants to kill these 3 girls because he knows something bad is going to happen to them, not to them, but to him in the future because of them. And he needs to stop them so they won't mess up what his plan is. But he never states what his plan is. He's just, I need to kill these girls so that they can die before they stop me from doing my plan. But like, I don't know, what is your plan? Like, your plan right now is to kill the girls so you can execute your plan. But what is your plan? I don't know what it is. I'm just sitting here like, yeah, they should stop you because you're trying to kill them, but that's it. I don't know what he's doing beyond that. This movie's just such a mess. And like, I really wish it wasn't because it has such a strong premise. I wish it was better. And I really feel bad for the actresses that are in this movie because like, I've heard Dakota Johnson has been very disillusioned from like a lot of the interviews she's been in, and I did see a clip of like one interview that Sydney Sweeney was in where she was talking about how she researched the character that she was playing and saw how acrobatic she was and requested for like a specific scene to be in the movie, and it's just like, you know, it's like, I feel bad for them because it's either like, they're like, oh man, I know this is going to be bad, I know people are going to hate it, or it's like, you know, you see that they put effort into it so they could do a good job, and it's just, it's bad. It's just all bad. It's just so depressing. Like, obviously, you can tell. I have a freaking Spider-Man poster above my bed with Miles, Gwen, and Peter in it. So, like, I love Spider-Man. He's one of my favorite superheroes of all time. And it's just like, I don't understand why they keep doing this with these live-action movies. I don't get why they keep making these movies with the villain characters. Because from my understanding, Sony just has the rights to Spider-Man. They can make as many Spider-Man movies as they want with Spider-Man in it. Unless there's some, like, clause in there that they can't use Spider-Man in the same way that, like, Disney can't use the Hulk in, like, a full movie. That's why he's only in cameo appearances. You know, maybe there's something like that I don't know about. But, like, otherwise, I don't understand why they keep doing this where they're making movies without Spider-Man in them. Like, there are so many Spider people in existence. Just pick one and make a movie. And not what Madame Web does, where it's like, oh, well, they're technically the Spider people, but they haven't gone through their origin story yet, so they don't have superpowers and don't do any spider things. That no. I mean, pick a spider person in the middle of their spider superhero career and make a movie about them facing off against a supervillain. I don't know why this is the most baffling thing in existence for them to do. I don't know who asked for a villain movie or just a movie about a character before they reach their origin, but like, it needs to stop. It needs to stop. So those are my thoughts on Madam Web. Bad movie. Don't go see it. And especially if you have epilepsy, because the way they edit together some of the sequences of Madam Web's visions are like very ridiculous. And I was just like, oh wow, I can't believe they did this. Like that's like very triggering to someone, I would imagine, that has epilepsy. So yeah, I guess a warning to that, but no one's gonna see this movie. It has like a terrible Rotten Tomato score. Like it went from like a 23 to a 16% over the course of one day. No one's going to see this movie. So yeah, that was it. Remember, folks, I am the innocent villain. You're innocent to proven villainous, and I'll most definitely catch you in the next video. Peace.